Hi, everybody. Today we have a great session with Mika Zahar. Mika, I'll let you introduce yourself.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Mika. I'm a composer. I was also part of the Gaming Academy last year. I joined the GA with Sasha and Fuad in 2021, I believe, this summer. And that's how I met Ashraf and everybody else. I got to meet some of you guys throughout some old sessions last couple of weeks. Everyone seems so great. So I'm excited to get this started. Let me just share my screen. Let me see how that does. Oh, there we go. Okay, and I want to share sound. I'm just going to ask you for a quick favor. Just let me know if you hear this. Yes, and it sounds okay. Okay, cool. Sounds perfect. All right, so we can get started. I'll keep the chat right here. I don't think you guys can see the chat. And there we go. Okay. So welcome to Basic Music Theory course. It sounds like a very threatening and a very scary title, but I swear it's relatively easy. This sounds, first of all, who I am. I think should be a good idea to introduce myself. I'm a film and video game and TV composer. I write music for these kinds of mediums. I'm also an orchestrator. And most importantly, recently, I am now also a cat dad. Got to know, I've joined you people. I see what all the rush is about. They're so cute. So yeah, that's just a little introduction to who I am as a person. And here's a little bit of what we're going to be doing today. Many of us have studied music in school. This is going to be the exact same thing. And I think we all forgot it, especially me. I forgot everything about music until a couple of years ago. And I think it's important to kind of just remind myself of the things. So I'm here to remind you guys. So act this as a refresher of things that you already kind of know. So things we're going to be looking at is music, obviously, like what are the notes in music? Intervals, what are intervals and how to use them specifically and why they're important? How to build chords, how to build scales, and more like maybe what are scales, and just overall how to make music. So these are for two types of people, for people who want to experiment with music, have a basic understanding and kind of like roam towards that, or for people who want to collaborate with musicians and want to have an understanding of what the musician's talking about. Because, you know, this whole meme where musicians don't talk director and director don't talk musician, right? We need to find a link between them. You've been playing guitar for 8 years. That's really cool. So yeah, so if you've played guitar instruments for a long time, a lot of these things, if not most of these things, you know exactly what they are. So just act this as a refresher, basically. Sweet, cool. I'll be stopping once in a while just to make sure everything is okay and everyone's on board, because it can get confusing once in a while, but I'll make sure that everything is as solid as possible. All right, cool. So first things first is let's just identify the notes and kind of understand what they are in music. Some of you might be asking why a piano. We're not here to learn piano. I know we're not here to learn piano. The reason why I chose this instrument is because everything is in front of you, like literally is literally in front of you and you can see clearly and it's easier to understand. All right, cool. So first things first, let's identify the white keys. The white keys are those little things right here. We all know the alphabet. Oh, and before I start, if I'm speaking too fast at any moment, please let me know. Sometimes I get carried away, okay? Just a little heads up. Thank you. All right, so the white keys. In the alphabet, we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then you have H, H, and I completely forget the rest. In music, it's very similar. You have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then you just repeat the whole process again. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then you just continue all over again. Simple, right? We like to start with C because for many of you who've taken the classical version of music, C is very much often represented with Do, which is, and for those who don't know, Do is usually like the basis of all music, of all scales and chords is Do. It's like the structure that everything roams around. So let's look at the keys. I have my keyboard right here, so I'll be like switching once in a while, so don't be alarmed. So first things first is let's look at the piano. You have a bunch of white keys all stuck together and it can get very eye-tiring. But look at the black keys. You notice they're grouped up. You got two, and you got three, and you got two. And it just repeats itself, right? And why is this important? Because if you look at the two, the ones that are grouped up in two, the notes, the white notes right before the two, that is C. That is our C. Yeah, for Ahmad, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. That is the same thing as C, D, E, F, G, A, B. So it's just a parallel way of saying it. It's just a bit more universal lately to say the letters. That's why I'm teaching you this today. So for those who are up in two, the note right before that is C. All right. And we all know the alphabets. After C comes D, then E, then F, then G, then A, then B, and then back to C. You notice after G, we went back to A, right? We didn't go to H, except the Germans. I think the Germans have an H, which is something else entirely. So let's go back to our base. So C, we know it's C because you have those two. You guys get to see the slides, right? Just to make sure. Cool, thank you, Ala. So these two grouped up too. We know that these two are grouped up. So this one will be C. And I even noted them down so you can see them clearly. So please ignore my singing. Thank you. That's C, D, A, F, G. And then we go back to A, B, C. And I'll be wondering why not start with A. Well, because I think music people want to feel special. I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, we like to start with C usually. All cool so far? Good to know. All right. So now I think we can identify the black notes. The black notes, you can notice they have the exact same letters, but they have a little symbol next to them. Like there's a little like telephone number, and then there's a little B. These are called accidentals. In a way of speaking, every single black key has an accidental. And the little number thing, we call it sharp. So to explain this a little bit easier and come back to this, I think it's a good time to talk about intervals. Intervals in music just means simply the distance between two pitches or two notes. So between C and D, that's an interval. Between C and this one, that's also an interval. They just have different values. So the two different steps that we have, the two different intervals, are a whole step, which is take a D, for example. And how we know this is because there's a black note in between. If there's a note in between the two notes, the two pitches, then that's what we call a whole step, right? For example, C to D, that's a whole step. B to E, that's also a whole step. Now, what about this? That's what we call a half step. It's with C and what we're going to be calling C sharp. That little number sign, that's called a sharp, is a half step because there's nothing in between. It's just stuck together. They kind of hate each other for all we know. There's a lot of tension, a lot of tension between those two notes. And that's what we're going to call a half step. All right. And a whole step is when there's a note in between. So far, so good? Cool. Now, you might also notice that there's another one. It's a C sharp, but what is that D with a little B thing? That is what we call a flat. Now, to not confuse you, and I really don't want to confuse you whatsoever, C sharp, which is, this is C, so C sharp. If you're going to this note, you can call this a D flat. This note can either be D C sharp or D flat. It's the exact same note, the exact same pitch, is just labeled differently. Why? Because musicians want to confuse you. That's exactly why. No, actually, it's because of context. So if you do music further down the road, you'll notice that some scales have flats, some scales have sharps. So it really just depends on context and how you want to use them. Overall, C sharp and D flat, for example, the exact same note. All right, that's all I want you to remember. Same thing with E, D. This is D sharp because, you know, it's half step up, but this is E, so this could also be E flat. Does that make sense whatsoever? So far, so good? Cool. So we can come back to the black keys right here. So these are C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Now we got these little guys. C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. And you'll notice, we mentioned earlier this is F, but you'll notice it's a half step away from E. E, F are half steps. Why is this not called E sharp, right? And why is E not F flat, for example? Because they're part of the white keys. White keys don't tend to have accidentals, at least in the first part of music theory. Except if you're like Mozart in the old like 20th century, these people were like, write E sharp and we analyze music and spend like 20 minutes looking at E sharp and thinking what that is until our brain cells kind of grow and go like, oh, it just means F, right? It's the exact same thing. So E, F are half steps away, but we don't call them E sharp and F flat. The same thing with B and C. You'll notice these two are also half step away, but this is not B sharp and this is not C flat. You'll notice I'm keep playing the half steps, you know, there's a certain tension to it. I don't know if you notice, there's a certain tension that comes with it. And I'm sure you all know this. Let me just read. I think there's a question somewhere. It's a confusing topic to explain, but it has to do with the creation of the piano, right? The jousting, exactly, yes. Well, the piano is, this comes more into pitch and frequencies and mathematics and all that stuff. But overall, we're going to come to explain exactly why, for example, these two are not sharps and stuff like that when we come to scales, which can be a bit later. But you're somewhat right, yes. Like chromaticism. Yeah, that's basically chromaticism. Chromaticism just means this. Chromaticism, that means there's no real scale, it's just chromatic. Yes, it's chromatic scale.
I hate that long board too. That's a lot.
Me too.
It looks so.
All right. So yes, the jousting. Exactly. Jousting is a lot of tension because the half step, right? The half step has a lot of power. It has a lot of tension and it always wants to resolve. All right. Just keep that in mind. So I digress. Let's go back to the back notes, right? So this is C, G sharp, D, D sharp, E, F. This is F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, D, and then we go back to C. And if you want to go backwards, you want to descend, you can go C, B. If this is A sharp, it can also be B flat, A flat, G flat, F, E flat, G flat, C. All right, just keep in mind, it's just a question of context and labels, nothing else between flats and sharps. Okay, cool. So we talked about intervals, we talked about half steps and whole steps. So at this point, I want to take just a little reminder, like think of intervals as recipes, as formulas, right? Like when you want to build a cake, the intervals is going to be the whole recipe, right? So you create it through intervals. The notes are the ingredients. You got your cake, you got your batter, you got all that stuff, right? It's a fun way of seeing it. But that was on me. Okay. So this is what the whole piano would look like. This is just the overall thing. Right? It's just a chromatic scale, like someone mentioned it earlier. But you don't have to focus on chromatic and all these kind of terms. All right. So at this point, I want to ask any questions so far. So after every topic, I'm going to ask if there's any questions before we move on to the next one, because music can be confusing sometimes. So I just want to make sure everyone is okay. All good from my end. And we'll look around through the chat to see if there's any questions I missed, perhaps. Still on, maybe next thing. Evil notes, yes, evil notes. That is, there's a lot of evil notes in music. I'll show you some later. And I think you're good. All right, cool. So perfect. So now that we have an understanding of, now we know what every single C and F sharp, what F sharp will be. Sorry, let me know, is this too loud? I want to know how loud you guys are hearing this, just to make sure. Sweet, just making sure, because for me it's a little loud. So So C, F sharp. Yes, because this is F. Cool. Now we know all the notes in music, right? We went from 7 to like 12 notes. How great is that? So now we can just build a scale, all right? And major and minor scales are the most common ones. And the first question could be, what even is a scale? No, you don't measure yourself or weigh yourself in. A scale is just a sequence of notes that you put together through the help of intervals to create what I like to call a little universe or a world. For example, if we're in the C major scale, which is this one, for example, you use certain intervals and everything happens inside that world. I am probably not explaining this the right way, but we'll stick to it. So I think the best way to explain it is to show you. So first, let's create a major scale. Fun fact, if you hit every single note of the white keys, only white keys, and you start with C and you end with C, you get the C major scale. Literally, if you start with C, end with C, and only hit the white notes, you get a major scale. Congrats, we now know your first major scale. But we can take the scale and kind of try to understand why, like how is it built, right? We know the concepts of whole steps and half steps. And I mentioned it earlier, everything is built around intervals. Everything. Music is literally built through intervals, whole steps, half steps. This is what creates the music. So we're going to be explaining that way. This is your major scale formula. All right. You got C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. That's your formula right there. But what exactly is the formula? D to D, we know it's a whole step because there's C sharp in between. So C to D, whole step. D to E is a whole step. E to F is a half step. F to G is a whole step. G to A is a whole step. A to B is a whole step. And B to C is a half step. All right. So this will end up with whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And if you start with any note, literally any single note, and you do the exact same recipe, you'll end up with a major scale. It's that easy, right? And we can even create one right now. Let's try with G. That's your G right there. And we know it's G because those two black notes, the one before is a C. So we go C, G, E, F, G. Now we know this is the G. I'm gonna go an octave higher. There we go. So this is the G. And let's do the exact same thing we just did, but with a G. So we need a whole step. G to A, because we have this in between. So G to A, that's a whole step. A to B, that's a whole step. Then we need a half step. That's going to be B to C. Right? And then we need another whole step. So C to D, another whole step, G to E. I kind of forgot where I was for a second. But then we need another whole step, right? From E, we need a whole step. It's not going to be F, that's a half step. We need an F sharp, because E to F sharp is a whole step because you have F in between. So E to F sharp is a whole step, and then we need a half step to G. I mentioned earlier intervals, like specifically half steps are very powerful, and they are, right? So if you're playing the G major scale, you got two half steps. Every major scale has two half steps. And the F to G. Probably the most important one will be the F sharp to G, so the last one, because that is how you resolve music, right? Music is like writing a paragraph. You start with little words, you put a comma, you do another sentence, and then you put a dot, a period. Same thing with music. If you want to write a little music, you want to end it, there's a lot of tension. There's a lot of tension between the last half step. And that's going to probably take you for your entire music career if you ever want to follow that path. That half step, the last half step, is what's going to really make the music you listen to in a certain key. You see, you feel like resolved, right? It makes sense. So now we know the G major scale. G, A, B, C, G, E, F sharp, G. All right, so far so good. Cool, sounds great, awesome. So we could do the exact same thing with A minor scale, all right? Another fun fact, I love fun facts, as you can tell. If you hit every single white key, starting with A and end it with A, you end up with a minor key, A minor. And it's you can tell it's a very sad and a little nostalgic, not melancholic scale, right? And it's not really a coincidence why C and A share the same notes. It just depends on when you start. Every major scale, and this is going to be like a side note, so you don't have to focus too much on it, but every major scale, let's say C, wait, so something like E to F sharp is a whole step and F sharp to G is a half step. Yes, you got it right, Majid, exactly. Because F sharp to G, there is no notes in between. But E to F sharp, you have that F here. So that makes it a whole step. That makes it a half step. You're completely right. Nice, okay, good to know. I mean, you guys are probably way smarter than I ever was because I took a while to get this through my head. So speaking of it, is that okay, cool. So yes, there's no coincidence that A minor and C major share the same notes. Every major scale, and the major scale is probably the scale that kind of englobes most things. Most things are also based on the major scale. So this is C major. And every major scale has something we call a relative minor, right? And relative minor is another part of that scale, the C major, for example, that has the exact same notes, but it creates a minor scale when you use the same notes. So in this case, it's A. And you'll notice every single scale, the relative minor is the sixth. So this is C, and this is another thing we're going to tell you how to count. So C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, F is 4, G is 5, A is 6, B is 7, and C is 1. Okay, this is good. Just remember this. It's a good way to think of music. Especially in scales, C, and it's called the root or 1. That's what starts everything. So in a scale, if this is 1, the 6th or 6th degree, if you want to call it, will always be the relative minor. That means, for example, if we're in G, you want the 6th degree, which is going to be G, A, B, C, D, E. So E is going to be the relative minor of G. That means if we start E and do the exact same notes as the G major scale, so E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, you get a minor scale, the E minor scale. See, you already got like every time you learn a major scale, you actually learn another minor scale at the same time. This is how cool this thing is. I'm a little bit of a geek and a nerd, just a little heads up when it comes to music theory. So I'm trying my best to keep it cool for you guys. All right. So minor scale formula is we're going to learn this through the A now, because we know it's only the white keys, right? So A to B is a whole step, B to C is a half step, C to D is a whole step, D to E is a whole step, E to F is a half step, and then F to G is a whole step, and G to A is a whole step, right? And once we use that formula for any other key, you end up with a minor scale, okay? Just like the other ones, think of it like a cheat sheet in a way, but you're not really cheating. This is just learning. Major scale, we have this formula. Minor scale, we have this formula. So just to mix things okay, we can try this on a C minor key. We know C is just all the white keys. What if you want to make it minor? Why not? The thing we need is a whole step. Sure, we need a whole step. C to D. Good. Then we need a half step. What is a half step after D? I'm not quizzing you. I'm just asking because I'm confused. E, we need a whole step. It's going to be great. And then we need a whole step. That's going to be, that's, are you going to get into the modes, by the way? I will not get into the modes. No, this is really just basic stuff. I was expecting someone to bring up the modes and like octatonic scales and some of that kind of stuff. These are more advanced stuff. I will not. But if you need any modes or questions about music whatsoever, just I'll have some links at the end for when you can reach me, and just let me know and I'll help you out. Okay. So you want to make a C minor scale. A whole step right here, a half step right here. But then we want a whole step. What is the whole step after E flat? The F, because you have E in between. So we have E flat and F. Then a whole step is going to be G. Then we need a half step. After G is going to be A flat. Notice I'm saying A flat and not G sharp, right? It's because we already have a G. The G is natural, the G is fine. It's the A that's flat. You start to see when we use sharps and flats is because it depends on the context. Here we already have a G, and a half step after G is A flat, because we already have it. So a whole step after A flat is E flat, because in between we have the A, so A flat to B flat is a whole step. And lastly, we need a whole step B. So far, so cool. So we end up with we always look at the after note. Yes, basically. So that's a good way of thinking it. My brain started braining. My brain started braining like 10 years ago. I got you. Yes, so basically always look for the notes. Basically, you want to fill, if you have a scale like the C, you want to have a certain version of C. You want to have a version of D, a version of E, a version of F, a version of G, a version of A, and a version of B. Now, you have those 7 notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Now, the quality of that note will depend if it's major or minor. So if you have C minor, C is normal, then D, then you need an E, flat in the situation. Then you need an F, it's normal, G is normal. But then you need an A, you need A flats. And then you need a B, flats. You end up with C. So always think of context. That's really good. All good? So I get the flat, but I'm not sure when we're calling it sharp. Sharp will be, for example, that's a good point. When I did G, we did the G major scale, right? B, A, B, C, D, E. We needed an F, but the F is sharp. We're not going to call this G flat because this is the G major scale. And the last note in the G scale is F. So in this case, the F is sharp. And then back to G. Does that make sense? Sail for change, aka Ash. All right, cool. So again, I think the biggest thing when it comes to music and maybe a whole other things, we tend to overcomplicate things way too much. And that's probably been like that. I'm the most guilty person when it comes to this. We need to simplify things in life. All right. The more simple you make it, the easier things become and more clear it becomes. We're all overthinkers. We're Lebanese people or Middle Eastern people in general. We're all very much overthinkers. So it's why punk works. Literally, punk is the most simple type of music. It's just pure emotion, right? You're right. So this is another question and answer if you have anything. And we can take a 10-minute break just for you guys to take. If you guys don't want a break, we can not take a break, but up to you. You can take a 10-minute break, refresh, come back. And if any questions, let me know. Sounds good? Sweet. All right. See you guys in 10 minutes. It's 12:06. So come back at like 10:16 or 10:15. All right. 7:15. Sorry, you guys are in other time zone. So come back at 15. Sweet. I have learned how to continue the recording. Okay. So let's move back. So last thing we did is we saw the notes on the piano and we did the basic scales, major and minor scale, right? So let me just share my screen again. Share sound. All right, everyone can see my screen and everyone can hear the music. Sweet, awesome, okay. All right, so now the big question is, let's build some chords. So everything we've talked about so far is the fundamental. So scales are like little universes where they abide by their own rules, and everything has to abide by their own rules, if that makes sense, right? So C major. C major is the king. C major, this is the world of C major. Like D has to respect the C major scale. E has to respect the C major scale. Does that make sense? Like everything has to work within that order. So every chords are based and built upon scales. So chords that you will choose will be constructed through scales. So we can start with a major scale. I mentioned earlier, sometimes if I'm turning around just so I see my piano, okay? So I said earlier that in a scale, for example, C is number 1, D is number 2, E is number 3, F is number 4, G is number 5, A is number 6, B is 7, and C is 1 again, right? And the same thing can apply to a minor. If it's C minor, C is 1, D is 2, E flat is flat 3, it's just 3 but flat, so flat 3. F is 4, G is 5, A flat is flat 6, B flat is flat 7, and C is back to 1. Does that make sense? Okay. So chords are constructed of 3 things. You need their roots, which is number 1, C major, you need the C. You need the third, so C, D, E, that's number 3. And you need the fifth, which is C, D, E, F, and G. And there you go. You have your major chord. And every chord you want to build, you can pick any notes and you can build this, right? And how about minor chords? Minor chords are the same thing. You always need a 1, a 3, and a 5. That does not change. It's just that the 3 in a minor scale, in a minor chord, is going to be flat. So instead of a major chord with a normal E, you want a flat 3. Now it's getting a little depressive, right? Now it's sad. Now it's melancholic. It's raining. Oh no. So 1, 3, 5 is major. 1, flat 3, 5 is minor. So far, so good. Can I get a thumbs up or a little yes, just to be sure? I know I'm asking this a lot. I'm sorry, just to make sure. All right, awesome. So inside a scale, so the reason I'm choosing C a lot is because it's easier and it's just white keys. You don't have to go through sharps and flats. So inside a major scale, for example, you have the C major chord. That is a given. That does not change. C is major because it's C major. What about D? Right? Let's build the D chord, right? So you have C, D, E, F, G, A, B in a C major scale. So the D, if you want to make a D major chord, right, you have to know the D major scale. So D major scale is D. I'm gonna give it to you right now, but it's based on the formula I gave you earlier. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. So in that case, if you want to make a D major chord, you have D, and the third is D, E, F sharp. And then you need the fifth, D, E, F sharp, G, A. That's how you make a D major chord. Easy. But in this situation, we're in C major. The scale is C major. There's no F sharp in the C major scale. What do? We only have a normal F. In this case, the F, which is usually sharp for D, is flat. So it's a normal F. It's F natural. That has no accidentals. It's a normal F. But for a D, in the perspective of D, that's in the flat 3 because D doesn't have an F. It has an F sharp. So G major, then G minor. And then how about E? And E major usually has a G sharp. If you know the E major scale, and you can use the same formula, it usually has a G sharp. But in this case, there's no G sharp, just a normal G. Then you get E. So you have C major, G minor, E minor, F major. Then you have an A minor, G major. Then an A minor, And then you have something called a diminished. This, I would advise you for the first few weeks just to ignore diminished, but if you feel like experimenting, diminished is a nice chord. Now, what is a diminished? We know that a minor chord is 1, flat 3, 5, right? Like C, C flat, and then you got a G. C, E flat, G. That's a minor chord. What is a diminished? A diminished is when you took the minor chord and the fifth is a half step down. So it becomes instead of G, you get a G flat. Tell me you're not frightened right now. I am terrified. You want to be frightened? Here, give me a second. Just to show you the power of a, there we go. Hopefully that wasn't too loud for you guys. But do you see how much tension a diminished chord has? I ascend it to heaven. It'll be more like the opposite, but yes, that's your point. Well, I'm scared now. See, it's a scary chord. And every major chord, every major scale, in this case it's B, the last note, the B, is going to be diminished. So now that we know this formula, major chord, minor chord, minor chord, major chord, minor chord, diminished, is going to be the formula for every single major scale. If we're in G major, for example, it's going to be a G major, A minor, B minor, right? Because we have the F sharp. We have a C major, then a G major, then we have a E minor, and then finally we're going to have a F sharp diminished. Okay, that formula goes fast and it goes through it easily. So far, so good with the chords. We now know the chords of any scale. All right, so at this point, we have a few minutes left. We can start making some music. All right, now that we know all the notes in music, we know how to make a chord, a major and minor chord. We kind of know what a diminished chord is. Let's make some music, and we know scales. So what do we need? We need a melody. And I believe it was Ahmad who was telling me he was feeling a bit uncomfortable, like out of place playing some certain scales. Melody is important. You need some harmony or chords, and you need some rhythm. So once we can start with a melody and see how that works. So, okay, let's start with the scale of E. And a little heads up, this is E major chord, but it's built, it's starting with a B. It's the same, as long as the notes are there, it's still the same chord. For example, E is here, G sharp is here, but instead of putting the B here, I'm putting the B here. Exact same chord, just different layout, all right? So that's E. And we can build the scale of E. You don't have to go through the whole formula again, but just to let you know, it's E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, and E. That's the major scale for E major, okay? So let's make a melody. Okay, let's do this. So we can go. This is a little tiny, very easy melody. It's based on the E major scale, as we said. But now we have the melody. We need chords. We need some harmony to accompany the melody. And a good way to do this is whatever notes you're playing is, if you want to have a chord that accompanies the notes, make sure that chord has that specific note inside the chord, if that makes sense. So if we're playing a B here, and we're in E major, we can start with an E major chord. because it has a B. Right? That makes sense. We can have those 4 notes with E major. And then we're going to an F sharp. We can start thinking what has an F sharp in the E major chord, the major scale. Well, B does. B has an B, F sharp, and a D sharp. So far we've got. And then we're going to hear E. What chord has an E? Well, E major has an E, but I mentioned earlier that music is like writing, right? You write a little sentence, you have a comma, you write another sentence, you have a period. It starts somewhere and it ends somewhere. But the music, like a sentence, needs to have a point. It has a direction and it's going somewhere specific. Same exact thing. If we're going to use B, then E, then B, then E, it fits, it sounds okay, but it sounds like it's done. It sounds like the song is over. Because we're in E major, and when it comes to scales, especially major scales, the number 5, so in this case, if we're in E, A, B, C, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, and B, B is number 5, that chord, which is B, D sharp, F sharp, is powerful. When I say it's powerful, as in it has a gravity pull that is unmatched, if that makes sense. I'm trying to cater towards my other fellow nerds. If we're in E major, and then you're going to play a B major, B major, that chord will want, and it's not even want, it's gonna need to always come back to E, no matter what. It's one purpose. The purpose of the chord of B major is to go back to E major. Just like if we're in C, the point of G major is to come back to C. Because C, D, E, F, G, that's number 5. The 5 chord will always want to go back to the root. That's its one purpose. In music, we have purposes. Number 1, C is not in C major. That's the root. That's home. That's where it belongs. You know, and then you have a bunch of other chords, but the 5 will always want to come back to 1. Music is all about pulling and pushing. Music is about tension, about release. Without this, you just end up with a very monotone music. You need tension. So if we're playing E major, for example, right, and we did it sounds okay, but we don't want to finish the sentence. So what other note, other chord has a E? Well, A major does. Right? And then we can go back to B. And then we have a G sharp, we can go back to E. So we end up with it works, right? It does. It's an okay melody. The chords are accurate towards the melody. It makes sense. But I don't know about you, but it feels like something's missing. It feels like it still has another sentence, right? It feels like there's a comma, not a period. So how can we make it a period? How can we finish the sentence? Because now we're playing the 3rd, which is the G sharp. How can we finish it properly? Well, we can finish it by changing the same, we can do the exact same thing. But we're going to change the last 2 notes to this. All I did is instead of doing I did the exact same thing. I just switched the last two notes. It's a very powerful movement. The interval between G sharp and E, like the E, F sharp and G sharp, so the third and the root. It sounds like a doorbell, right? Ding. That's actually the doorbell sound, by the way. Now you know. But it's a very powerful. It ends the sentence, right? It just finishes it. That's the coma, and we want to finish it one more time. We repeat it, but with a different ending. Right? And there we go. We have our first sentence. We had a little coma, and then we have the second sentence, and we had a period. We started the song, we started with a motif, with a melody that is completely based on the E major scale. I'm not deriving from the E major. Everything I'm doing is in that scale. Right? And then we did a coma, and then we finished it by going back to one. Finishing a song on the root means number one, which is E in this case, is a beautiful way to finish it. And then you can do an octave higher. There we go. That's one way to write a song. You have to finish the session and go set something. How hard it is for pianist engravings. I don't think I know that song. I'm playing engravings. I would say go for it. I mentioned it earlier during the break. This entire workshop is, yes, there's a lot of restrictive boxes, right? There's a lot of rules and stuff like that, but the whole point is not to put you in a box, is to take the rules and just break them, just in multiple pieces and do a different puzzle, right? It's to give you the tools that whenever you're experimenting with music, you kind of have an idea or understanding what you're doing to some degree, right? That's the whole point of this workshop. Please go experiment. You want to do engravings, go do engravings. Nothing's stopping you. Just take it slow, step by step, and you'll get there. I have no doubt about it. All right. So does that mean that because we have a melody in E major, does it always have to be happy? Because it's all major chords, you know, you have E major, you have B major, you have A major. But in the E major scale, and if we go back here, where is it? We have a bunch of minor chords, right? We can take the exact same melody and make it a little bit sad. And that'll be like the last thing we'll do is take the same melody, the exact same one, and just put some minor chords into it. And it'll give you a little sadder version of it. What has a beat? All right, you can look around, see what has a beat. Well, G flat has a beat, right? Well, G sharp, sorry, G sharp, B, G sharp. In a G sharp major, the B will be sharp, aka C. In this case, we only have normal B, so already the beginning of the song is a little bit sadder, right? It's not as happy as if I'm doing this, right? So we can continue. We did an F sharp. Well, we can play the actual F sharp minor. F sharp, A, C sharp, right? So we have so far. And then we need something with an E. Well, we know C sharp minor has an E, right? We got C sharp, we got E, we got C sharp, we got G sharp. Go back to F sharp minor. I'm using the same chords, right? And there's just G sharp minor, F sharp minor, and then C sharp. Because these have the notes that the melody has. And automatically you can tell it's a bit sad, right? It's not as happy and happy-go-lucky for music we heard before. It's a little bit sad. It's a little sad. But music is not always about just being always happy and always sad. It's about mixing things up. You should always be able to mix things up. You can start with an E major, like we did before. Oh, that's not an E major. And then you can have a B. Then I have a C sharp minor. See, what I'm doing here is I'm just mixing major and minor chords. I'm just seeing what works. Okay, this is just me. It's like a daily habit of composing. You try different things. You see what sounds nice. But the whole point of this exercise is to know what chords go with what note, right? So we know that it's a B, so that could either be, it could be E major, it could be B major, it could be G sharp minor, right? So then we have F sharp, that could either be an actual F sharp minor, right? It could be a D sharp, which is going to be diminished. That doesn't sound too happy, does it? Y'all feel me? Y'all feel the tension? And here we go, we release ourselves with the E major. So yeah, experiment, see what sounds nice and just go for it, right? So never mind. Oh yeah, you want to hear it again? Here, hold on. How long can I hold this note before it becomes therapeutic? Here's a social experiment right here. You're welcome. But that's the same thing with the 5 chord, you know, if we're in E major, let's do E major. I was playing B major for a long time, and that's a 5 chord, it's like major chord. Never mind. But you realize that the B, which is the 5 chord of E major, is happy. It's supposed to be happy. It's a major chord, but now because I'm playing it, if I'm playing E major, you know, and then C sharp minor. Do you feel like the song is good? The song is over? You're welcome. Now you feel like you can appreciate a bit, right? So the 5 chord is a very powerful chord to use whenever you want to create some tension. And I think that's all I had planned for today. Hopefully it wasn't too much for you guys. Do you have any questions whatsoever, like at all? Like even if it's not much related to what we just did, just any questions music related, please let me know. I have a question. Yeah, go for it. What is it? Can I open mic? Yeah, sure. Let me see how that works. Let me go. I don't know if the moderators have the power, if I have the power, but let me see. Sorry, just give me a quick second to be able to see how that works.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Okay, so I have a small question more about quote unquote the production of music rather than the actual theory. I wanted to ask, let's say I wanted to create a small tune or a melody or a main theme for my game. I have a piano at home, I have a guitar, etc. I don't have a microphone to record them. And let's say I got GarageBand and I want to record it on my iPad or on my phone or whatever. It's not very easy to play these notes. I want to play like chords. I need both my hands. It's not comfortable. Do you have any recommendations, any apps I could use, any way to cheat that system somehow, maybe record my piano in a better volume?
Oh yeah, I can show you right now. I have Logic, which is kind of the advanced version of GarageBand. Let me just reopen it if I can. You guys see Logic? No? Okay. Well, essentially, the whole point is in GarageBand, you want to record it, you can use your phone or you can use the computer itself. At this point, what you can do is you create another track, right? So if I'm recording Oh, no. Hold on. There we go. Do you guys see the window of logic, or you only see the slideshow? Oh, hold on. I didn't see it. Chat. Try changing. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, just give me a second. Stop share. There we go. And let me reshare. I want to use the logic. There we go. You get to see the page now, right? Cool. Let me just double check with the chats. No. Yes. Okay, cool. So this is logic. It's just like GarageBand. You can see the same layout. I have a piano, choir, and over here. This is an audio, right? This is how you get an audio in GarageBand, and you can start, record, blah, 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 record, ding, ding, ding. And you want to do the chords, right? You just go here, track, new track, audio, since you want to do audio, and great. And then you can either have this muted if you don't have headphones, or just record it with headphones so you can hear the melody while playing the chords. So that way you have the harmony here. You can have this harmony guitar, for example, and melody guitar. And then you just go for it. But won't the quality be bad? Well, it's different track altogether. This is the quality isn't related to the digital audio station, to the software. It's how you record it. So if you take if you have an iPhone or an Android, they both have really good audio recording, by the way. So you can go to the audio thing, record it, send it to you, and then you can just take the file and drag it here. Literally, if you have the file on your computer, just drag it. I'll give you an example. Hold on. Let me turn this off. Let me go to music. Audio headphones, echo, and non-focused. Well, if you have headphones, you should be able to hear it perfectly fine. You just plug it to your computer, you should be able to have it perfectly fine. But you can also always just mute it. And don't forget that if you have somewhat of music background, you have a metronome right here. And that can help you know when to change the chords within chords over a melody, right? You can hear the melody in your head and go, right? So if you imagine this is the guitar, you go. You can just keep doing that, right? So do as many tracks as you need. And if you have some virtual instruments, because GarageBand has a lot of virtual instruments, you can have fun with that too. Sounds good? Just piano, roll, and MIDI tracks of it. Yeah, exactly. If you GarageBand has, sorry, if you go here, you can go piano, Steinway grand piano, and then you can also just, or if you press Command K on the Mac, you have this, and you can just use piano there. Laptop apps that are free. Yes, actually, I think the next session, there's something called Ableton Live that is completely free. And there's others that I'm trying to find one that is both for Mac and PC, because not all of you have Mac. No, I don't want to. Okay, not all of you have Mac. I'm just gonna stop sharing for a second so I can see the chat properly. Sorry. Stop share, s'il vous plaît. All right, sorry guys, just a little lag. There we go. Ableton has a paid version and has a free version, which is just the free version. But essentially, I'm just trying to find a software. Who here has PC? Who here has Mac? Just out of curiosity. PC. I mean, that's the powerful one is PC. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I'm a Mac person, but the powerful one is the PC. Let's be honest. Mac Windows. So most of you have Windows, it seems. Okay. I'm trying to find something that is both PC and Mac. Oh, there we go. I'm just trying to find something that's PC and Mac friendly, because we can't really discriminate against one or the other. Leave that for your own chat rooms. So yeah, essentially, once I have I think Ableton Live is free, so you can use this, and I'll help you find some virtual instruments that you can download, and they're free. You can just use them with your stuff. But essentially, just to conclude, I just want to share my last screen, if it's okay, just so you guys can see where to reach me in case you have any questions. Share screen. All right. Reaper is really good. I mean, there's a lot of digital audio stations and they kind of all work the same way. But essentially, I'm just gonna find something for everyone to use, right? But yeah, that was basically it. Before we finish with some questions, the whole point I wanted to make is experiments. Please do experiments. Like someone mentioned the MIDI instead of piano. Piano will always sound better, right? An actual instrument will always sound better than MIDI. Like MIDI just means virtual instruments. So if you have an actual guitar, even if it doesn't sound that great, if you have like a piano, just go for it, experiment as much as you can. It's nice. That's what the point of music is, right? And let me just bring back the chat just in case. Is wallet friendly for, yeah, that's true. I'm trying to find something free for everyone. That's true. And use your ear. Whatever you do, always use your ear. It's the best critic you have. And if not, use your friend's ear. They will hate you, but it's okay. And if you have any more questions, I'll finish with a few questions, of course. But if you have any questions after or during production and you need some help with music whatsoever, this is my email. You can find me on Discord or Instagram. I can answer to all three. Sometimes it takes me a bit to answer, but maybe a day or two, and I'll make sure to get back to you, okay? Yeah, please. This is the part I want to close the thing and just take any questions you guys have. So go ahead, Ethel. Yeah, I think it was a moderator who did it last time. Let me just double check.
All right. Hi again. I'm here with my group mates. Just a small, we kind of don't have much experience in music, and we have this idea for our game where we want the music to gradually develop into chaos, and that it starts in this really fun circusy way, then becomes chaotic. So with our limited music experience, we know how to do a basic dun 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 song, but we don't know how to make it like a chaotic mess afterwards. How do you make a song chaotic but not so hurtful to the ears that it's no longer enjoyable?
That is a really fun question. I did the exact same thing a few weeks ago. The best way, well, there's multiple ways, right? There's no one way. You can either add instruments and maybe add something we call dissonance. For example, remember in C major, we had B, which is diminished. Diminished scales or diminished chords are there's a lot of tension to it. That is beautiful for chaos. Or if you use, when you say it's chaotic, I think chromatic. I don't know why.
No, I mean chaotic, not chromatic. Not chromatic scale.
I'm hearing the question out loud. But yeah, so chaotic is my favorite word in all time. I love chaos. But
yeah,
one thing we can do is if you're using Unity, like integrate the music directly to Unity, or directly to if you have middleware like Afmod or Wise or whatever it is. One thing I love to do is you speed up the music just a little bit, just a hair, and music won't be like, it won't sound bad. It just sounds like the music you have, but just a little bit faster. So you have a bit more attention. It's gonna be a bit like, oh no, something's gonna happen, right? Yeah, that's one way. If you don't want to speed it up, it's completely fine, and it depends on the game, right? You can add some instruments, but playing chords and notes that don't belong in the scale you're playing.
Right? So dissonant notes.
Yeah, dissonance. So because that's gonna create a lot of dissonance. But just be careful with what kind of chords you use. So always use your ear, right? Because that's how you're gonna judge what's best. There's a lot of different ways, but those would be the main ones, in my opinion. Just creating dissonance, adding some like percussion, some loud percussion that come and go and come and go and come and go, you know. Instruments like that like organs, they can just, you know, you can have fun, just go and have fun. Think chaos, be chaotic.
Obviously, yeah. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. All right. Anyone else have any questions? Seems like we're all good. Sweet. All right. Well, if there's any questions, that's fine. As always, I'll even write on the chat if you guys want. Discord. Actually, let me just check what my name is on Discord. I think it's just. Yeah,
I think you're tagged in the announcement, so we can find you there.
There we go. Just message me on Discord or email, whatever it is.
Mika on the channel should be Mika-Misfits. Like me. I have Misfits.
Yeah. That should be
her name.
When in doubt, always ask Kasha. She knows best.
For sure.
Very much.
Thank you so much for this wonderful session.
Thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.
I mean, my internet was being really bad with me, but everything that I saw was really, really great.
I'm happy. I'm happy you guys had fun. Again, don't complicate things. Simple is better.
Well, we're looking forward to the next one. And thank you all of you for coming. We hope you had a good time. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Yes.